moving on then, let's talk about our boys. Let's talk about McLaren producing a brilliant result in formation whilst their rivals Ferrari failed to really make any impact whatsoever. I'll try not to sound a little too smug about it. I was talking
Your
about...
face is saying otherwise.
I was talking to a friend of mine who is a Ferrari fan. We were talking about this earlier. So, but yeah, it was great qualifying for Ferrari. That was the thing. They started off much stronger. P5, P7, great laps. But they just completely lacked any race pace whatsoever. They were both struggling with tyres, as were lots of cars, of course. But Leclerc, I thought, pitted a bit too early to have any kind of undercut advantage. I thought that was a bit unusual. Both drivers were soundly beaten to the punch by Alonso and both McLarens. And yeah, speaking of McLaren, I was extremely encouraged by their performance. And although he finished behind his teammate at the end, I don't think we've seen Ricciardo as racy at any other time so far this season. Something is really starting to come together for him, which is very, very good. I think Norris doesn't really need to improve. He is the most consistent driver on the grid right now. But Ricciardo, if he can put it together and we can see the Ricciardo of old back, that is an unbelievable driver pairing, maybe the best on the grid. So very, very exciting stuff. He had plenty of overtakes as well in his pocket. It wasn't just all strategy. He made it happen. Finished P5 and P6. Norris, still the only driver to score at every race so far this season, including 2 podiums. 6 of those 7 results are in the top 5. Absolutely outstanding. Now, we've heard that Ferrari are now focusing on their 2022 car. That's what they mentioned that in the press briefly. Supposedly they are just sacking off this year and accepting it largely for what it is. Does that mean the end of the McLaren v Ferrari battle? Is it just advantage McLaren for the rest of the season? Because that is kind of the way that it's looking right now.
As much as I would love to see McLaren just take off and secure P3 in the Constructors' Championship, because I really would, maybe it was just a track for Ferrari. Look at the last couple of tracks we've gone to: Baku, Monaco, long straights, slow corners, and look at the tracks we're going to Austria. Yes, you don't have the long straight, but there are some slow technical corners in Austria. There are loads of them throughout all the sectors. So I do think Ferrari will be a little bit stronger going forward into the next into this double header, or the second half of this triple header. But that's saying, even in the previous races, they've qualified quite well, but their race pace has been subpar, and we saw that on Sunday. It was horrendous. I mean, when was the last time you saw Charles Leclerc finishing P16? He had nothing to give. Like he had no answers for his pace whatsoever. And then Carlos Sainz, the guy we were praising 2 races ago for picking up the steering wheel with both hands and driving his heart out and trying to score as many points as possible, and beating Leclerc in qualifying, finishes in P11. Really bad day for Ferrari. I don't know. Ferrari are a big team. They've got lots of resources. They could probably focus on 2 cars at the same time, unlike the smaller teams who have completely ditched this year's development. But maybe Ferrari, I mean, they've had terrible years in the recent past. So maybe actually just dropping this year and having another bad year wouldn't be too far out of the question if they can come back stronger next year. I don't know. It was interesting to see how bad they were this week. It was shocking. It really was.
It still can't be as bad as last time. I mean, ultimately, qualifying P5 and P7 is great. I mean, they've got 2 fantastic qualifiers as well. Leclerc is an excellent qualifier. One of the best on the grid, one of the best races on the grid in general, and Sainz has really, really become an outstanding driver in the last couple of seasons as well. So they're not short of talent, they're not short of resources, but if they're leaving the car as it is now, it clearly struggles for race pace on a couple of circuits. So
yeah.
Austria, as mentioned, we got 2 Austrian Grand Prix coming up. That's a track they did pretty well at last season, despite struggling with the car. Leclerc got on the podium in the first race of the season, as did Norris. So that could prove a good battleground. But yeah, I can't help but be extremely encouraged by McLaren's work. It really was a fantastic team effort. And Lando Norris is just the most consistent driver on the grid right now. And really, really incredible performances.